Hello, my name is Justin Decloux, and I'm here today with
Will Sloan, and you're also here with my good friend Oswald. Hello, I'm Oswald.
Oh, hey Oswald, how's it going today?
It's real good.
For people at home, I mean, I know that you guys are used to hearing ventriloquist dummies on the radio, like Edgar Bergen used to do back in the day, so Will is
Edgar Bergen, who is that?
and so Will is actually holding his hand up, pretending to talk through it, and talking out of the side of his mouth.
I'm not talking out of the side of my mouth. This is my friend Oswald. Is that
Oh,
right?
Oswald.
Hello, I'm Oswald. Will, you are such a handsome man. I think you need to be pleasured. Oh, Oswald.
Well, I mean, you need to meet my friend too. Dude, how's it going? It's me, Biff.
Now, this is really important because every ventriloquist needs one kind of smart-ass dummy, and then needs one really dumb dummy.
Yeah. And so we got both of them, and I mean, you got the same chemistry on this podcast too.
You know, we're continuing forms because ventriloquism, of course, as everyone knows, it's the art of the airwaves.
Mm-hmm. The radio.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. All right, we're gonna get into this. We're making like jokes as if people know what we're talking about.
So yes, you need a sassy dummy, you need a dumb dummy.
Yeah.
But today you also need a bunch of racist dummies.
Because
the most popular ventriloquist of our time is the racist Jeff Dunham.
And people asked us, "Oh, are you going to do Jeff Dunham?" And I said no, because he hasn't really done a narrative film where he's a ventriloquist in it.
If he had done a movie, that
we would have watched it.
We would have watched it.
Yeah.
But it's mostly just stand-up specials, and I'm sorry. That's not what
we get it.
But anyway, this is the ventriloquists in movies episode.
Yes.
And very crucially, we're not talking about movies about ventriloquists.
No, so people are knocking down our doors, asking us if we're doing Danny Kaye's Knock on Wood, and I said no.
You know, no Richard Attenborough's Magic.
Yep.
No Dummy starring Adrian Brody.
Wait, is that one about a ventriloquist dummy?
I assume I haven't seen it.
You just assume because the title is Dummy?
No. Well, it does have a ventriloquist dummy in it. I know that because I used to see the DVD at Rogers Video.
We're not doing the Great Gabbo, the Eric von Stroheim one where he played the ventriloquist.
Yeah, we thought about that one. That one looked kind of good.
Yeah, but maybe he did the voice of his own dummy. Do you think he did? Eric von Stroheim seems like a guy who would do that.
Yeah, probably. But no, we focused on ventriloquists, ventriloquists who became popular in other media, on stage, in the radio.
And they're like, this talent there's too much fire behind it. We need to bring it to the big screen.
And so we had feature-length vehicles for them, and that limited us to basically 2.
Yeah, I realized very quickly that, I thought there would have been more than this.
There must be a third somewhere, but then we also watched a documentary about
ventriloquism in general, yes.
Yeah.
Because I feel that if we're talking about this, we need to get into the mind of the ventriloquist. Something that there's not that many popular ones other than Jeff Dunham.
And also, my good friend Will here. That's right, Oswald. I am a very popular ventriloquist. Oswald will chip in every now and then with his thoughts.
Are you going to do the hand every time just so the verisimilitude of me and you, I buy into it?
You know, the listeners couldn't see this, but I actually switched hands when I did that.
I know, it threw me completely off. I'm like, this must be a different Oswald.
But again, Oswald's a real boy.
All right, so we've joked before when we learned the fact that Edgar Bergen used to do his ventriloquist act, and it got very popular on the radio.
I mean, this is a legendary joke. For
Yeah.
decades and decades, people would say, a ventriloquist on the radio? Well, you can't see if his lips are moving or not. Nevertheless, one of the most popular comedians of his day, one of the most popular radio shows of its day.
Now, as an old soul who is immersed in old radio shows, have you listened to any Edgar Bergen radio ventriloquist shows?
Yes, I have.
So he introduces himself as a ventriloquist, or is he just doing characters on the show?
I would say he's mostly... So listen, the image in your mind's eye that you're supposed to have is Edgar Bergen with a puppet who he's holding.
So so it's not like I'm just doing multiple characters. We are framing this as this is a guy with a puppet on the radio.
And I would, but also it's ambiguous because is the puppet real or not? Well,
I will tell you. Oh, you mean like when he's doing it?
Yeah.
When they do like live stuff, if movies have taught me anything.
Okay, here's how I would explain it. It's like you go see a ventriloquist on stage, as you do.
Love it.
And
I got my season pass.
And that image that you see on the stage of a man holding a puppet and talking to it, and you're supposed to basically take the puppet as real, that's what was on the radio, except you didn't see it.
Yes.
And
it seems to maybe cut through the enjoyment you would get of seeing a ventriloquist act?
Okay, it would seem to,
But it didn't.
But what I learned from this deep immersion into the work of Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy, who is his dummy, is that personality matters so much more than technique.
100%.
Because
You
Charlie
could be a perfect ventriloquist, but if you have no character in the characters you bring to life, either the swarmy, horny dummy or the dumb guy dummy, those are the only two. There's no other ones.
That's right.
You know what? I am forgetting one. Lamb chops.
Oh, yeah.
Very popular. Does that count as a ventriloquist though? I would say yes.
I think
she
so.
used to do it.
She wouldn't move her lips.
Yeah, and we want to separate here. We're not talking about Muppets. That
No.
means or puppetry.
Because
or marionettes.
There's got to be a visible person.
You need to see
holding
the
them.
person there. That's very important with the tension of this. Okay, before we even get deeper into Edgar, people are like, we want to know more. Where do you stand on ventriloquism?
I am pro ventriloquist.
I am also pro ventriloquism. Have you ever seen a ventriloquist live?
I'm sure I must have
As a child?
at some point across my 36 years.
Yes.
But I'm drawing a blank.
Because I'm trying to think of like when I became aware of ventriloquism, probably as a child, thanks to the Goosebumps books.
Yes, the Goosebumps books. What was that book called?
Night of the Living Dummy.
Right. And, the ventriloquist dummy, just as like
The
an
iconography,
object,
yeah.
is prevalent. But I would have seen Edgar Bergen in the Muppet movie because he's
Yes,
in it
that's
for
right.
like 10 seconds.
Now, I don't think kids really like ventriloquism, or they can't quantify it if they would see it live, which I don't think they see very often anymore, other than it as a joke. Like, you see clowns more often than you see ventriloquists.
I think I would have, as a kid, liked ventriloquists because it's like a guy who's holding a puppet whose lips can't move.
Yeah.
And so it scratches a similar itch as like a magic act does. And then, hey, if the ventriloquist drinks a glass of water and
You love
the
it.
dummy sings, it's like, whoa, how did he do that?
Because there needs to be that tension in, this guy is doing the dummy's voice. That's where the enjoyment comes out of. And then let's get back to Edgar Bergen, where that tension is completely missing from it.
So yeah, Edgar Bergen was a massive radio and then television star throughout the 30s, 40s, 50s. This bought him a number of feature film vehicles.
So many people do not understand how many feature films he was in.
The most fondly remembered one is You Can't Cheat an Honest Man, which is an outgrowth of his celebrated radio rivalry with W.C. Fields. This is something, W.C. Fields would often guest on the Edgar Bergen show, and he would have a feud with Charlie McCarthy. You're asking, is Charlie McCarthy like real on the air? I mean, W.C. Fields would often joke about him being like, a big splinter, or feed him to the fire or stuff like that. So canonically, Charlie McCarthy is made of wood.
Okay, so that's what you meant. Is he real or not? Or it's like, is this a real person in the room, or do people acknowledge that there's a dummy present?
But I think we will be discussing the sort of metaphysics of Charlie McCarthy. We will be discussing how real he is, also just from film to film, because I think it varies. I don't think the canon is quite consistent throughout these films.
Now, I want to temper expectations. We didn't do the one where they're detectives.
Charlie McCarthy detective, yeah. I mean, we just ran out of time. We wanted to watch it. I'm sure it's great.
And I didn't want this to be the Edgar Bergen episode. Maybe we will return to the topic. The ones we watched, people said were the best. To which I go, P.U.
Well, I found things to like. So You Can't Cheat an Honest Man.
I mean, find things to like. I love W.C. Fields.
He's one of the funniest guys ever.
He's very funny in this movie.
And
anytime Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen show up, the film is like... For people who have never heard Charlie McCarthy's kind of act, in these movies specifically, so because I saw some clips, and he's funnier live on stage, kind of like riffing.
Right.
These movies are like, slow down, Edgar.
Another thing about ventriloquists that's funny on stage is there's the tension of like, there's the ventriloquist, the puppeteer, who's like really polite and dignified.
Yeah, the straight man.
And you got this dummy who's saying all these things, all these insane things, because he's a dummy. What does he care? And then the ventriloquist has to say like, no, Charlie, don't say that.
That dummy's a real Ricky Gervais hosting an award ceremony.
Stop talking about how horny you are, Charlie, which is basically what half the jokes are.
Oh, man. There's a joke about that I'm like, put that dummy in jail.
And there's that tension of like, oh, the dummy said that. Oh, but actually the dummy didn't say that. It was the puppeteer. And there's that kind of uncanny quality to it. I can't believe I'm like stating this. It's so... What else am I doing?
When has anyone thought about ventriloquism ever, who's listening to this? Unless you're a ventriloquist superfan, in which case I apologize in advance.
You know, before we started recording, you said something that shocked me. You said that you like the idea of ventriloquism, but you don't like any of these dummies, just the way they look.
Not specifically. I said Charlie McCarthy is the one that I do not like how he looks.
Oh, come on now. Okay.
And I don't like him as a person. I'm going to say this right now.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, so Charlie McCarthy.
How many times did you laugh watching these movies that leapt from the lips of Charlie McCarthy?
Probably 0.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean I don't feel some fondness towards him.
The W.C. Fields film that we watched is so bored with the dummies that they disappear for the last 20 minutes of the movie to just have W.C. Fields go to a rich person party.
Right. And I'll summarize the plot of You Can't Cheat an Oscar. I know, it's baffling, this movie. It's from 1939. Like any W.C. Fields film, it is basically a collection of scenes with the barest tinsel of plot. He plays Larson E. Whipsnade. He's the manager of a traveling carnival that is in financial difficulties. He's got a daughter. Daughter's got a boyfriend. Fuck that shit.
Yeah, sucks.
Hate all that.
Get out of here.
And don't worry, because that's only 5 minutes of the movie. Mostly the movie is cutting back and forth between W.C. Fields doing shenanigans and shtick, and the scene where he himself has a ventriloquist dummy is really funny because he's really bad.
Yep.
But the thing is, when W.C. Fields has a ventriloquist dummy, he puts on these like fake teeth that hide his lips, and I think, well, Bergen should be doing that.
Okay, so here's another, like, I feel like I saw you say this 100 times in the last week in multiple different places. That you are furious that you could see Edgar Bergen's lips move.
Right. And I mean, I'm sure I knew this before.
Yeah.
But I keep seeing his lips move, and it's so obvious.
So this is why Charlie McCarthy, not a good dummy, because you ain't looking at that dummy when he's doing his shtick.
Well,
if he was grabbing you, you'd be looking right at Charlie.
Well, yeah, this is important because part of the illusion is like, it's like what Jackie Chan said when he was filming Rumble in the Bronx in Vancouver. It's like, well, there are all these mountains in the background. And he said, well, if people are looking at the mountains, we've already lost.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, I'm always looking at the mountains in that movie.
Yeah. And people love it. Everyone's looking at those mountains.
And I'm always looking at Bergen's face at these, because it kind of feels like I'm peeking behind the curtains a little bit. It looks like I'm looking at something that I shouldn't see. But then we saw this documentary later called Her Master's Voice.
And the ventriloquists in this are masters. Like
they're incredible.
Yes.
And this is a movie from 2011. It's a documentary by and about a more modern performer named Nina Conti.
Have you seen the clips of what she does now most of the time?
No.
She puts giant lips on audience members that come up on stage, and then she does bits with them where she's having conversations she'll make the person be like, all right, I'm going to do a big dance now. And then Nina's like, no, you don't need to dance. And the person with the mask is like, no, I want to dance.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, very funny.
Well, so obviously Edgar Bergen is my default. If you ask me who's a ventriloquist, he's the first person I'll say.
Of course. And probably the most famous ventriloquist other than Jeff Dunham ever.
Yeah. And I think for years I underestimated the art of ventriloquism because he was my frame of reference because his lips fucking move. But then I see Nina Conti, who's unbelievable, whose lips don't move at all.
Yep.
And I think I've been lied to for years.
Maybe it's from, Edgar being on radio all the time. He got slack. He didn't need to, make his lips not move. By the time he gets out on stage, people are just happy to see him, right? So,
well, but again, the point is, though, that technique still doesn't matter as much as personality because people love Charlie McCarthy.
People loved Charlie McCarthy.
Loved past tense.
Yes.
He was a massive industry.
Huge.
I've got a Charlie McCarthy book from the 30s at home that I have on a shelf that I look at sometimes.
Anytime you're feeling down.
And it's got his little face on it. It's got his little monocle.
I do like that monocle, which I don't think he wears in any of these movies, does he?
No, he wears the monocle and You Can't Cheat an Honest Man. I will explain why I like Charlie McCarthy, basically. He's not my favorite guy in the world, but I like him because he's very dapper. No matter what situation he's in, he's always dressed for the occasion. In this movie, no, not in this movie, in the other one we watched, whose title is escaping me already.
Because they all have, laugh in it, right?
Yeah, it's Look Who's Laughing from 1941.
Not me! I wish I was a critic back in whenever this movie came out.
41, the same year as Citizen Kane. We'll talk about this movie, but there's a scene in this movie where Bergen is flying a plane for some reason, and Charlie McCarthy's in the seat next to him, and he's wearing his little pilot's uniform. He's got like a little Biggles hat on and everything. You know, when he goes to a party, he's got a top hat, he's got a tuxedo. You know, he's dressed for every occasion, and he's got a monocle, which I think is fantastic.
Always funny.
Yeah,
bring it back.
I love seeing the monocle.
But I think the problem I have there is that Charlie McCarthy, the upper crust.
Oh, no.
See, I want to talk about Edgar Bergen in these movies a little bit more, but there's a ventriloquist that I feel is more the people's ventriloquist, if you will.
Well, we're going to get to him.
Yeah, okay, so these two movies, that one where W.C. Fields is in the circus, what are the top ventriloquist bits in it? The thing about Charlie McCarthy in these movies, too, is the way he talks is like, hey, what are we gonna do? Like, there's not much verve there.
Well, and the reason that he talks that way, I think, is because Bergen is trying his hardest not to move his lips.
Yeah,
and so he has to make the character kind of
he talks
like
a little slow when he talks, which I think works a lot more for Mortimer Snurd, his yokel dummy that he has.
That's right. Mortimer Snurd is a bit of a simple jack. Mm-hmm. His relationship to Edgar Bergen is ambiguous because Bergen and Charlie McCarthy, they are close friends. It's a father-son relationship. Although
it's always father and son, even though that, as we see in these movies, these dummies and the guys who control them always sleep together in the same bed.
Well, you know,
as one does.
The rent was high back then. They just had one bed. You know?
Yep. So I'll say that the W.C. Fields film made me laugh the most when W.C. Fields was on screen.
Yeah, so you asked me what are the top ventriloquist bits. I can't give you that. I can give you the top W.C. Fields bits.
We're not talking about that.
I like his ping pong game near the end. That's funny.
Yep.
You know, a little racist at times, but...
Oh, you mean when Charlie McCarthy gets in blackface?
Yeah, okay. Well, that's the ventriloquist bit I remember. Charlie McCarthy gets in blackface in this movie.
Yep.
But let's talk about Look Who's Laughing from 2 years later, 1941. And we won't have too much to say about this movie.
Well, I have a lot to say because, man... we finally get the big, titans of the radio up on screen together.
It's the Avengers of radio.
Lucille Ball
is
in this movie.
Right. So she's not so much a radio star,
no.
but she's...
not really a big entertainer at this point in time.
Well, she's a sort of minor movie star.
Yeah.
But the two big shows that are coming together are Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy and... your favorites, Fibber McGee and Molly.
Now, I saw these names and I went, I've heard those names. I know nothing about them. I can't wait for this movie to elucidate me about. Oh, okay. No, I'm not going to get much from them, aren't I?
Fibber McGee and Molly, I think, exist today in the popular consciousness, like kind of in the same place as, Ma and Pa Kettle or something like that. Just a kind of like antiquated thing from days gone by that people don't quite know. Now, me, as an old radio fan, I have heard Fibber McGee and Molly.
Yeah.
Once or twice. They are not my go-tos.
Yeah. When you sit down on Sunday and you tune in that radio station to listen to your programs, maybe a Fibber McGee and Molly will slip in there. Do you know what their comedic game is?
Well, I was trying to figure that out today, actually.
Yes.
And I was, dutifully reading the Wikipedia page because, I just knew that they were kind of like, they were a husband and wife duo and they were kind of lame. And they were basically the proto-sitcom, and they were gentle and they were nice because I hadn't heard them in years.
Yeah.
And then I watched this movie and I think, okay, now I get to reacquaint myself, find out what Fibber McGee and Molly is exactly. Yes. They've got a great name. Fibber McGee.
Love it.
Molly.
So does Molly lie? Doesn't at one point she puts a voice on to let me be clear, get the horny dummy to go on a date with her. And she's like, I look like Ginger Rogers.
That's right. Well, she's playing a trick on the dummy.
Yep. Oh, we need to be clear. In this movie, the dummy is alive.
Okay. Well,
he is alive. So he's in other rooms
I have so much to say about this. I just want to finish talking about Fibber McGee and Molly.
Okay, yeah.
So
we're getting all riled up on this ventriloquist episode.
So the liar is Fibber McGee because he's a fibber.
Yeah. Is that the root of that word, I wonder?
Oh, I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah, it can't be.
Write in if that's the root of the word. But I'll try to tell you the plot of this movie. It's Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy are superstars. They're famous. They are Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy.
Yeah.
And then one day they go on a plane trip for some reason.
Yep.
And then they land in a small town. The small town where Fibber McGee and Molly live.
Oh my God.
Everyone is so excited to see them. And they say, Fibber, do you have a bed that we can sleep in?
There's it's going to be big enough for me and my dummy.
That's right.
I will say one joke that did make me laugh was a Looney Tunes joke when I think they're running out of gas at one point and they look down and it's like out of gas and it's just a big thing on the dashboard.
That's right. Oh, there's also another radio character, the Great Gildersleeve.
Now, so I looked into this. He was a Fibber McGee and Molly character who then Cheers style had his own spin-off that became as popular.
And I don't see why we couldn't have got another radio game.
So who would have been? Who would you have wished in this?
Fred Allen.
Probably. Okay.
But listen, I think the big problem with this movie is I don't think Fibber, McGee, and Molly are compatible with Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. I mean, they're both kind of gentle, but to me, Charlie McCarthy swallows this movie. Everything goes into him. Fibber, McGee, and Molly, I kept sitting there like squinting, trying to figure out what exactly was it.
Is their game? Yeah.
What are they? What's funny about these two? And I think if the movie had been a bit more like the show, it had been more of a sitcom, and you can get into the gentle rhythms of it.
Well, it all involves that like something's getting shut down, and they need to get enough money. A lot of scenes with no jokes.
There's some political intrigue.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I thought it was kind of oil and water, and I didn't find it very funny. But what if I told you that this movie is directed by Alan Dwan?
People will be like, who? Very famous silent film director. I guess, I'm sure he directed for years after this.
Sands of Iwo Jima is one of his big ones. He's a auteurist cause celeb.
Would you see it here?
No,
not at all.
I think he ran probably a very tight ship.
Yep. And he was like, puts his hand out, put the check in it. All right, I'm good.
But I like watching a movie like this every now and then. And sorry to listeners, if you search this podcast because you love Fibber, McGee, and Molly.
Yeah.
I see you, I hear you. I'm sure they're great.
Yeah,
we just don't see it here.
All we can see is this one piece of it.
But what I
want to get into is the dummy real in this.
Okay, yeah. What I like about this movie is just that it's like visiting the past. It's like this was disposable entertainment for audiences in 1941 that's full of reference points they knew. This is the MTV Movie Awards of its time. You know. Now, is the dummy real?
He is.
Yeah.
Like, he takes phone calls. He goes on dates.
Because I don't necessarily... Is he real in the W.C. Fields film? It's more ambiguous because he is really encoded as a ventriloquist in that movie.
Yeah, because he's doing an act on stage.
That's right.
Here, I mean, he is a ventriloquist, but the dummy is independent from Edgar doing stuff.
There are scenes of them in different rooms.
Yes.
There's a scene where Lucille Ball comes and talks to him, and... Again, this is a very horny dummy. So
he is so horny.
The dummy keeps trying to like touch her boob, basically.
Yes. And like,
I'm not making this up.
Like this is just the shtick of the dummy is him being like, oh yeah, I would love to have sex with this human woman. And
Yeah.
It's like, where is this going, Charlie? How far is this going?
If I were a human woman, I'd be afraid of splinters.
Yep. I mean,
Jesus.
I feel like that's an act he probably did on vaudeville. We didn't even talk about all these guys are from vaudeville. That's where they became famous. Or radio, I guess.
Well, probably primarily vaudeville.
Yes. So I know if you're a big Charlie McCarthy fan, we haven't touched enough. We have one little tidbit again, but let's move over to the side a bit to get Paul Winchell, arguably the second most famous ventriloquist.
Yeah,
of his era.
And he is Edgar Bergen's Bruce Lie, basically. He also has two dummies who are exactly the same as Edgar Bergen's
Then why
dummies.
do I like Jerry Mahoney so much more than I like Charlie McCarthy?
Because you root for the underdog.
Yeah, he looks cheap too.
Yeah.
He looks like if you blow on Jerry Mahoney, he'll like break into pieces.
I think you probably resent the cultural supremacy that Edgar Bergen had.
Yep.
Like for example, the other Edgar Bergen film we watched, because yes, we watched a third one. It was called hang on.
I don't want to get into it. Charlie's Haunt.
Charlie's Haunt. Okay, well, all I'll say about it is I feel like Bergen strolls into that one with like an eminence around him.
Yes, he is. That people are like, oh, Edgar Bergen.
Edgar Bergen. And Paul Winchell doesn't have that.
No. Paul Winchell, all right. So we didn't watch too many bits of his. He doesn't star in any movie, technically. Except one that is related to our interests.
Yeah, so the story of Paul Winchell is...
I'm just very excited to introduce people to this movie.
He was born in 1922 in New Jersey, so this is also important. He's the East Coast Edgar Bergen. I almost said Ingmar Bergman. He's the East Coast Edgar Bergen, and I feel like he has a bit of that like East Coast like energy to him.
Yeah.
Like that's why he seems a little cheap too. He doesn't seem kindly. He seems like a kind of rough and tumble guy.
But the thing about the Paul Winchell movie that we watched, and another cast of characters that co-star in it, is that like the dummy bits made me laugh.
Yeah.
Like they did in a way that Charlie McCarthy never did in the movie versions. Now, is it because he is under the hand, Jules White, in the movie that we watched, which was, again, laugh is in the title.
Well, okay, I think it's very important to explain what this movie is, and then we'll get into the metaphysics of Jerry Mahoney.
Yeah. and Knucklehead Smiff, Great name.
Absolutely. So Stop, Look, and Laugh is from 1959. It is a movie that was made to cash in on the resurgent television popularity of the Three Stooges.
And the Three Stooges wanted nothing to do with this.
That's right. So they made a movie at Columbia called Have Rocket Will Travel, which I'm sure you've all seen. It's great.
Yeah.
And then they wanted more money for another movie or something like that. And Columbia said, nuts to you. We're going to make a feature film compilation of all the greatest scenes from all the greatest Curly shorts.
Yeah. Not the shorts in their entirety, only like a couple scenes from each short.
That's right. And it's tied together with a day with a day in the life of Paul Winchell and his two dummies, Jerry Mahoney, who is his son in this film.
Yes.
Canonically, he's his son, as well as Knucklehead Smiff, who is a sort of a trickster spirit.
I think also his son?
No, because I rewinded to catch this.
Okay.
When he's tucking him into bed at night, he's just staying over for the night. Knucklehead Smiff refers to my parents.
Oh,
so he has other parents.
Because Knucklehead Smiff is being helped because a big part of this movie is their grades and going to school.
That's right.
And Knucklehead Smiff is like having difficulty with math and stuff like that.
And probably every subject.
Yeah, and the stranger comes and helps him, I guess.
And this is the crucial difference between the two dummies. Jerry Mahoney is a slacker. He's a kind of Bart Simpson.
Yep.
And Knucklehead Smiff is, again, he's simple.
Yeah, a dumb guy, if you will.
Yeah.
And so right from the get-go, I throw this movie on, and I'm like, boy, I'm gonna have to struggle through these parts.
I knew you were gonna love this one.
And I was like, right from the get-go, when Paul Winchell wakes up. Well, first of all, I see the name Jules White, and I'm like, yes.
So Jules White's authorship on this movie is. It's interesting because I read an interview with him.
Did he say it had nothing to do with it?
No, he oversaw this movie, basically. They brought him in. He didn't direct any one segment.
Okay.
But he was the manager of this film.
And so when they wake up in bed together and Jerry Mahoney sits up, I'm like, oh my God, the dummy is alive in this movie. But not only alive and talking. Now, does this break our rules? Because we said that we wanted to see him on screen doing it, and he seems to be doing it, but also later on in the movie, they puppet Jerry Mahoney, that he has two hands of someone else controlling him.
Okay, so that also happens in the Edgar Bergen movies.
Oh, I must have missed it.
Because there's a scene in Look Who's Laughing, I think, where Bergen walks away from the car.
Not me.
Yeah. Bergen walks away from the car, and like Charlie McCarthy yells something at him, and it's like, well, his hand's not up Charlie's ass. So,
right. Yep. Okay, so that makes sense. So
it's just cinema, you know?
Right from the get-go, when it's just Paul Winchell's like, you gotta go to school, Jerry. And Jerry's like, I'm so tired. And he like goes into another room. He comes back and he opens a drawer. And
Jerry's in there sleeping.
That's funny stuff.
Jerry keeps finding places to sleep. And he has a catchphrase, don't holler.
Yeah. No, isn't it like, yeah, don't holler.
He says it like 5 times in this first scene. And
I was really hoping
again.
they keep saying it. Doesn't come up again.
Classic Jerry, though.
And now people are wondering, how are the Three Stooges shorts tied into this? I gotta say, this is one of the funniest parts of the movie, because each time we would cut back to Paul Winchell, I was like, what will be the thinnest premise to get to the Three Stooges bit? And it starts mighty thin with Paul Winchell at one point sitting Jerry Mahoney down and saying, let's start at the beginning of time.
That's right, because Jerry Mahoney has a test at school that's like, it's about history.
Yeah.
He says, well, I can tell you about history. Back to the beginning of time. There was water.
Yeah.
Water.
Cuts to water.
And it cuts to the Stooges next to a fire hydrant or something.
And then they're on a construction site.
That's right.
And then it cuts back.
Or there's a scene later where Jerry's at school and Paul Winchell picks up the phone and he calls like the car repair shop and it's like, hey, my army friend brought my car to your car repair shop. Is it almost done? The justification is like the Stooges are dealing with a military vehicle, basically.
Well, so Paul Winchell, as set up in this movie, lives in a hellscape where the Three Stooges are everywhere. At one point, he's putting, I think, Jerry Mahoney to sleep, and he's like, I hear a baby cry. What could be going on? And then it cuts to the Three Stooges with babies. So in the reality of this world, next door.
That's right.
So they're always here. If he tells Knucklehead Smiff a story about Mexico, we're going to get the Three Stooges bullfighting.
That's right.
And he doesn't sometimes he goes, they were the three dumb guys. At one point, he sets it up. I don't remember for which part. Early on it was. Made me laugh. There's a scene where Paul Winchell takes care of a baby Jerry Mahoney.
Okay, I want to pause on this. So yeah, it's a flashback. He sees a baby picture of Jerry, which implies that Jerry like grows and learns.
And was like came out of a vagina.
Yeah, well, he had sex with a tree, and then we saw what happened.
Yep.
Because that's the only explanation. Because yeah, he's it's this flashback of him with this baby Jerry Mahoney, and then it cuts back to Paul Winchell, and he hears a baby cry, and he goes, "Wait, that's a real baby." And that implies that Jerry's not a real baby.
Okay, is real human in this kind of like,
I guess so,
in the language of this film?
I guess so, but it's also in that flashback that Jerry Mahoney calls him a ventriloquist.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, you might have missed that. He went, "You phony ventriloquist," or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, could maybe...
Which I didn't like. I didn't like the breaking of kayfabe.
But what if the reality of this film is we don't see Paul Winchell doing his act somewhere else? That he could be a ventriloquist, and that he lives with his two sons, one son, living ventriloquist dummies.
I mean, this movie is basically a fever dream of him. It's like it's the end of Once Upon a Time in America in the opium den. You know, he's probably recovering from like the tragic death of his real sons, and he's imagining this ventriloquist world where the Three Stooges are everywhere.
Now, why are we bothered by, like, I want to see them on screen, or I'm bothered by Charlie McCarthy moving around on his own. Don't like it. But Kermit, it's fine.
Well, because that's not the deal you signed up for.
Yeah, that's right.
Because with the Muppets, you never see the puppeteer.
You never see Frank Oz on screen.
And that's not part of the tension.
No, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes 100% sense.
Yeah.
100% sense.
You were hoping to tease more out of that, I think.
Yeah. I actually knew what the answer was. This was more of a setting you up to get to it.
Nice.
And if anybody would respond with that, I don't know, like, I guess ventriloquist, not purists, but fans?
Wait a minute, what's ventriloquism? Oh, Oswald. What did I tell you to never bother your father at work? Yeah. I'm sorry.
You sit in the corner and you be quiet.
All right, Oswald's gone.
He's good. I'm glad that you used the right hand that time. Don't confuse me or anything.
I'm Professor Goofball.
Wow, you got a dumb guy too?
Yeah.
Professor Goofball.
Oh, I'm so dumb. I don't understand anything.
I think you're just making a text right now, but sure, all right. All right, so we watch one more Charlie McCarthy thing that I'm going to say right from the get-go, I was tricked into watching.
Yeah.
Because if you look on Letterboxd, right at the bottom of his filmography, which should have set off warning bells, was a picture of Charlie McCarthy being like, "Oh!" and a big haunted house in the background. And I went, oh, all right. So this is going to be like a kid's special where Charlie McCarthy and Mortimer Snerd go into a haunted house.
And the fact that it's called Charlie's Haunt.
Yes.
That got you excited.
Yes.
And then we looked at who directed it, and it's Robert Florey, director of Murders of the Rue Morgue.
Big fan, both of us, of him. But that cover on Letterboxd is from just a paperback. Can you imagine being a kid and being like, I love Charlie McCarthy so much. Can I get a novel where he and Mortimer Snerd go to a haunted house?
The idea of reading about a ventriloquist dummy in a novel is so funny.
So is Edgar Bergen, do you think, is he in this novel? Or is he like their dad?
Well, as I said, I do have a Charlie McCarthy book at home of this approximate vintage, so I'll check it. I never thought to read it.
Yes. It's like a sacred text.
Yeah.
But no, Charlie's Haunt is an educational short forced upon children. 1950, you're sitting in grade school, your teacher brings out a projector, and they're like, we're gonna watch a little short from Belle.
They thread the 16mm film, that they're smoking a cigarette at the time, so they accidentally light it on fire. Everyone dies.
No, not nitrate, so it wouldn't be catching fire. Don't worry about that.
No, it caught on fire. Everyone died. And then at the next school over, though, they thread it correctly, and then they start playing it. And then who do we first see?
Well, who is made up of the cast of this movie? The world's oldest men.
Led by Don Wilson, the rotund radio announcer on the Jack Benny Show. And I love.
So the kids are like, Don Wilson.
Well, actually,
I love the scene where so Don Wilson goes to a town, he sits down, and he's like, "Oh, what's going on here?" And the guy is like, do I recognize you from somewhere? And then after a while he goes, oh, it's you, Don Wilson. And Don Wilson goes like, oh yeah, I know.
And also importantly, before we know it's Don Wilson, like we see him from behind. He's in a phone. He's in a phone booth, and and you hear the voice. He says, "Hello, Rochester. Have you talked to Jack?" Now me, an old Radiohead.
You know who he's talking about.
I know who Rochester is. I know who Jack is. It's like, oh my God, I know it's Don Wilson.
I need to emphasize again, these are all like 65-year-old men throughout this short.
Yes. Don Wilson, morbidly obese.
Okay.
I'm not, and I say that with no judgment. I'm just describing. I'm just painting a picture.
So isn't it what happens is he comes into a small town and like Children of the Cord, he sees a statue of Charlie McCarthy seemingly made of gold. And he sits down and asks the guy being like...
He sees two statues of Charlie McCarthy.
And he's like, what the hell is going on in this Twilight Zone town?
And these Charlie McCarthy statues are like holding up signs that say like, watch your step or look both ways before you cross the street.
They're not statues. They're just
placards.
But there is a
statue at the end of the film.
Yes. And so he's like, what's going on? And just like, there's a famous Twilight Zone episode with a dummy. I don't remember what it's called, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
There's a Tales from the Crypt one too with Don Rickles, which is really fun. He asks like, what's going on? And the guy throws to, well, we started hearing some weird voices a couple of years back. So the premise of this educational short is that, this is so weird to say, that a town was very safe at work. And this is specified, that like when a guy falls off a ladder at home because he didn't properly, put it down, ends up in the hospital, Edgar Bergen shows up to visit the mayor of the town or the owner of the, I don't remember exactly who he was, doesn't matter.
Edgar Bergen comes because like when the president can't make it, he dispatches Edgar Bergen.
And it was like, the guy he visits goes, oh yeah, someone I know got hurt. Bring Charlie McCarthy along.
Okay, so there's this incredible scene, where there's this man in traction with a broken leg. And he's next to his daughter, who he fucking also hurt when he fell over. He fell on her. And so they're sitting there in traction, and then Charlie McCarthy gets wheeled in and he starts roasting them.
He's like, hey, you big fat piece of shit.
He starts being like, hey, you're so dumb. Why? Everyone always thinks they'll be safe on the ladder, but you didn't.
They never think it'll happen to them, you stupid piece of shit.
And I kept thinking, like, when is he going to say any words of comfort? Like, surely, like, tough love is one thing, but, like, the guy's already broken his leg.
Is that daughter that's there is like, who is this dummy? Like, we are decades removed from the popularity of Charlie McCarthy.
No, she knows who he is. She loves him.
She loves Charlie McCarthy. And, okay, so this is not made text in the movie, but basically, the guy who lives in the town tells Edgar Bergen, can you pretend to be a ghost and haunt everyone in town, throwing your voice and chiding them when they do something wrong. Right. And that is the bulk of the rest of the film. And something weird about it is that they specify the people are safe at work, but at home, they're just very irresponsible.
That's true.
So what you really need is a boss-like figure that follows you everywhere, as Charlie McCarthy's voice does in this film.
A big brother, if you will.
Yes,
what if Big Brother was the most annoying like little creature in the world?
So like a woman goes to pick up a bag of dirt, and you hear like, what are you doing? You're so stupid.
No springs.
That's basically what it is. So it's like someone picking up dirt, someone who kicked something under like a stove. Yeah. So the implication here is Charlie McCarthy is like peeking in through windows, like just looking over bushes, and he is so annoying and so ever present everywhere. They love him for this.
So the next time you're in the locker room, changing, just think Charlie McCarthy could
probably
be
watching.
Yeah.
And the movie ends with them going, oh, Charlie McCarthy nagged us so much that the town became safer, so we built him a golden statue.
Yeah.
And the short ends with the Charlie McCarthy statue coming alive. And it goes, if you ever do anything wrong, I'll be watching. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. Again, I didn't see much of Robert Florey's visual poetry.
Nope.
And if I were recommending people watch any movies on this episode, well, first of all, I don't know what there is to say about the documentary Her Master's Voice.
Well, I think it was interesting in that a deep dive into why people are ventriloquists and why it's an extension of yourself. You get to say stuff that you don't say otherwise.
Well, yeah, and watching her interact with these, like, because as the movie begins, like, she's going on a pilgrimage to donate the puppets that she's inherited from her mentor, who is also her much older lover for a time.
Ken Campbell.
That's right. She's going on this pilgrimage to donate these puppets, and she's already given up ventriloquism.
Yeah, she said she doesn't want to do it anymore.
She would go on like Britain's Got Talent and stuff, but she got worn out from it. And throughout this documentary, you see her on this trip as she basically like reacquaints herself with these characters that she's created. There's a scene early in the movie where she's got one who's like a really old woman, and she's having a conversation with this puppet about like, now make sure you have all of my pills. Make sure all the pills are in the right pill containers, because if they all get mixed up, it'll be a bloody nuisance. And I thought, oh, this is sweet. I really like this.
She's taking Ken's puppets to the museum to put them away, and as she's doing that, she controls all of them. So there's like the old lady, there's like a bulldog, there's an owl, which you don't see very much.
I do think that like this gets at something about, inanimate objects, like puppets, but also like teddy bears and stuff like that. Like they can become in our minds quite anthropomorphized, just as we have them for a long time. Like if you have a stuffed animal that you've had ever since you were like 1 year old, that becomes like, that almost feels like a person. It's been with you for so long. It's borne witness to so much history. And I feel like this kind of gets at that. Like also when you see her interacting with these puppets, they're witnesses to earlier times in her life. Like they're more than just like felt.
Well, at one point she talks about how that like she got an abortion, and then many months later she created the little monkey puppet that is her puppet that she does all the time. And I gotta say, you watch this movie and you're like, oh yeah, ventriloquists can be funny.
Yeah.
Like there can be that interplay in between, the person doing the puppet and the dummy. What's funny is that like if you watch her do her show, one of the tensions in her show is she's always laughing at the jokes that the ventriloquist, the dummy says, or I say dummy. She mostly uses a puppet because the little monkey is very small and by consequence more cuddly. That once you get into Jerry Mahoney, Charlie McCarthy, there is that kind of like, with just the mouth moves and the eyes can like go up and down.
Actually, I'll say this for Edgar Bergen. I think the way he moves the dummy is incredible.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I think he's got a lot of personality just through like the way his head moves and the way his body is manipulated.
And so, like, why do you think that we don't have more ventriloquists these days, Will? Do you think it's something that could come back?
Well, Mr. Jeff Dunham suggests that it could. I mean, it's kind of...
but he's been around. He's kind of, like, been grandfathered in from the early 2000s.
I mean, it's a bit of a limited thing, potentially, Like, once you get over the trick of, the lips aren't moving.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you do with it beyond that?
Well, it's a character, right? That's why you would want to go see it.
Yeah.
Or hear it on the radio or read novels about it.
Yeah. And I think that's just a tricky thing to get right.
Because I think that when you see ventriloquist, if you look on YouTube, it'll just be like, you won't believe that he's controlling the dummy. And that's not really that interesting past the novelty point, that you need something else there.
Hey, did you watch those clips of Albert Brooks's ventriloquist act?
I've seen those multiple times.
So
They're very funny.
Oh,
is that Albert Brooks? Albert Brooks put that ventriloquist act in the grave. No one could come up and take it.
Yeah. I guess he did the best possible version. But yeah, if I'm recommending movies on this episode, aside from that documentary, check out Stop, Look, and Laugh.
Yeah.
Because it's probably the rare perfect film. It's like, what else you need? You got the world's cheapest ventriloquist, and you got the Three Stooges, and we didn't even mention the scene with the chimps.
Oh, that's right. At one point, they're like, I don't think we have enough Three Stooges footage, so let's do Cinderella with chimps. And that's it.
Yeah, the marquee chimps. And it's the chimps, they're all dressed up as Cinderella characters, and there's voiceover narration. And it's kind of like the Dogville shorts from the 20s and 30s, except not nearly as impressive. They're just chimps dressed up, and
they're being forced through situations.
They don't really do anything.
No.
But I had a great time watching it.
I will say, you call him the world's cheapest ventriloquist. Did you know he patented one of the first artificial hearts?
I mean,
he ain't cheap anymore,
that's
baby.
pretty amazing. Oh, and we didn't even mention Paul Winchell is the voice of Tigger.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He's the voice of many famous cartoon characters. Dick Dastardly on the Wacky Races, but Tigger is I mean, for God's sake.
Paul Winchell, the people's ventriloquist, not Charlie McCarthy.
Yeah, so check out Stop Looking Left. Check out You Can't Cheat an Honest Man.
Yeah, I mean, you got W.C. Fields in it. Why not?
And, aside from that,
Leave the others in the garbage.
if you're insane like me, you can watch the other ones.
Now, do you think you'll ever be reaching for, like, Charlie McCarthy Detective? To be like, what could this be like?
Yeah, probably in about 10 years, like an Alzheimer's patient, I'll be like, Charlie McCarthy.
There's that book I've never read sitting on the shelf that brings me joy.
I love him. Let's check out his detective movie.
So, as per usual, you can send us letters at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. Our first letter is from Felix, and he goes, "Hey, Justin and Will. Just discovered your podcast and absolutely loving it. Recently watched a 35mm screening of Eastern Condors in San Francisco with friends. One of them later told me he had listened to a podcast about the movie on the drive home that he really enjoyed, but didn't want to say what it was. But didn't say what it was. Not didn't want to say. What are you doing? You got to say. It's like, all right, listen to a really good podcast. The Important Cinema Club. Here's the website.
Yeah, remember, if you listen to this podcast, you're part of a movement, so act like it.
So I did a search and took a chance on Important Cinema Club jackpot. Now, let me say that maybe his friend wasn't talking about us.
It could have been anyone.
Yeah, it could have been
anyone. It might have been, Sleazoids did Eastern Condors recently. It
could have been that one. So the letter continues, have been listening to the Asian-themed episode, so I thought you'd be amused to know that at least one of your listeners has met Chu Yang-ping.
Whoa!
It's like meeting Buddha or something like that.
Okay, just a refresher if you folks have forgotten. Chu Yang-ping is the Taiwanese director of Fantasy Mission Force, Island of Fire, and literally 100 other films. And he was a director who was known for making schlock, for making really like poppy bubblegum cinema, and for being basically a slave of the Taiwanese mafia.
Yes, yeah.
And that's true.
That like most of his career is films that he did not want to make.
And can't even remember making because he was so exhausted and he was making 10 movies a year.
The letter continues, I had just graduated film school in 1993 and set out to Asia to check out the film scene. Wow. What? Just to be able to be like, hey, let me go check out the film scene in Asia.
Back then it was so different. There were like 5 people in the West who cared about what was happening in Asia.
And as this letter will continue, and I've heard other people say, if you were like, hey, can I get on the film set? They'd be like, you want to be on the film set? Sure, come along, white guy.
That's how Rick Myers became like the expert in Hong Kong cinema, because he was the only guy who'd ever heard of Jackie Chan.
First stop, of course, Hong Kong. I leveraged every connection I had, keep in mind this was all pre-internet, and somehow managed to get hooked up with a ton of pros. I most wanted to meet John Woo and Choi Hark. Woo would happen later, but that summer I got to visit Choi on the set of Once Upon a Time in China 5.
Holy moly.
I will say Once Upon a Time in China 5 is the one Once Upon a Time in China film that Choi Hark... Wait, did he direct that one? He did. He didn't do... didn't do 4.
Hang on, let's get the fact checkers on the case.
He did. 5 is the one where he came back and it's a pirate movie where there's a lot of gunplay.
And it's one of the, he did direct this one, and it's one of the 2 that doesn't have Jet Li.
Yep, that's right. The location that day was a hangar soundstage that had been converted into a pirate's cave. Yeah. When we approached the entrance, the star Zhao Wenzhou was squatting on a small plastic stool, picking at something on his foot while eating his rice place lunch. I said a quick hello to Choi Hark, who I'm sure wondered who the hell I was and why I was there, and sat down to watch filming. Eye-opening. Very different than U.S. sets. Alas, the movie was nothing memorable. I'm going to go to bat and say I actually really like Once Upon a Time in China 5. That it's Choi Hark coming back to the series and trying to figure out how do I make a different kind of movie instead of just a straight martial arts one. And the answer he gets is mostly gunplay. So it's very all over the place and fun.
I mean, really ashamed to say I've seen the first 3 and I've seen Once Upon a Time in China and America.
So 4, not that good. And 6 is in America, right? So you're good. You're covered. You don't need to see them anymore.
One day I will catch up on my Choi Hark blind spots.
Now, have you seen Last Hero in China?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Whew. The Wang Jing directed film.
Yeah.
That's Once Upon a Time in China parody starring Jet Li, but choreographed by Yu Ping.
That's
very
right.
good movie. The letter continues. Other fanboy dreams came true, including having tea with Michelle Yeoh, which was started up by a friend I made over there, Mike Leader, someone who has remained a friend with me all these years. From there, I flew to Beijing to meet fellow film students at the Beijing Film Academy.
Wow, that's incredible.
Beijing itself hadn't yet been transformed. I saw Farewell My Concubine in a theater that more resembled a town hall with wooden benches. It had to be a multi-use venue. Anyway, those shanty areas have long been replaced with modern buildings. Finally, Taiwan. I got introduced to Chu Ying-ping somehow. I have no memory of how that occurred, and got to visit his latest film on location, the first Shaolin Poppy. The HK film set...
Holy shit. My head is going to explode.
The HK film set was a U.S. film set in comparison. I never saw the finished film, but there's a scene where one of the little kids are menaced by a snake. That's what they shot that day. The kid was not acting. He was genuinely terrified.
Holy moly.
A crew member held a pane of glass between the snake and the kid. It was a big snake, and I wouldn't have been confident that that small piece of glass would protect me either.
Wow.
Anyway, hadn't thought about any of this
Imagine being on the set of Shaolin Poppy, or is it Popeye?
Well, for legal reasons, it's Poppy. Anyway, hadn't thought about this in a long time, and your show brought it all back. What? I mean, what? He haven't even seen Shaolin Poppy either.
Oh, well, that's one thing I've got on him. He may have been on the set, but I've seen Shaolin Poppy.
He may have met some of my favorite filmmakers of all time, but we've seen that movie and not liked it very much.
Yeah. I mean, it's a famously not very good movie.
No.
And by famously, I mean it's not a very good movie.
Nope. Well, it was a big hit at the time.
But that's crazy to be on the set of a Chu Ying-ping movie.
Is there any film sets that you're like, oh, what would have been like to have been on that set?
Like every filmmaker who I love.
So like Jerry Lewis, of course.
Jerry Lewis. But here's one. Oscar Michaud. What would it have been like to have been on an Oscar Michaud set? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Because he had no money.
No money at all.
But yeah, to imagine that.
Is it more interesting to see someone figure it out with no money? And this is assuming you're there and they know you're there. Because if you're just floating invisible over everything, that's different.
So that's what I would want to do.
Yes.
Is to float over everything invisible, because I don't want to step on an ant.
This white guy.
Yeah. I don't want to step on an ant and change the course of human history. Mm-hmm. There's a great documentary series called Unknown Chaplain. Have you ever heard of this? It was made by Kevin Brownlow in the 80s, and it's a collection of it. Basically, he got hours and hours of outtake footage, and he assembles it so you can see that Chaplin and his crew basically made these movies up as they were going along.
Right. There's that footage of him over the grate, right? That he's trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
I've seen that one.
Yeah, there's that, and just some of the shorts just begin with one idea, and then after take after take after take, it turns into something completely different. And as he discards the elements that aren't working. So I recommend that if people want to see what a Charlie Chaplin set was like, because I feel like we don't have a document like that for most filmmakers.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, to be on the sets of the film I love, will that destroy the magic of it? And oh, that's how the sausage is made, for example, because you don't have to think about all those, or will it just elevate it in my mind as well?
Maybe. I mean, you've definitely seen behind the scenes photos of movies. You've seen behind the scenes footage. Is there anything that you think's been destroyed by?
No, I don't think so. Yeah. Other than hearing that people were giant jerks or something like that, or people were injured while making the film.
Yeah.
Which I'm trying to think, has any film been ruined in that way? Because there's comic books that if the author comes out and just an awful person, I've gotten rid of whole runs of comics that I've loved.
Well, speaking of Hong Kong, I mean, the famous scene in Super Cop where Michelle Yeoh
motorcycle jump?
Rides a motorcycle onto a train. I mean, there has been footage that you could see with the camera pulled out a bit where it's she was on a wire.
Yeah.
Which, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I don't think it matters.
It's still dangerous, but it's just a little less fun when you see the wire.
But, I mean, if we're talking about Jackie, the classic, when you realize, wait a minute, Jackie doesn't do all his own stunts? New Line has been trying to convince me?
Yeah, what they meant is he does a lot more stunts than
normal people
do.
Yes.
Yeah.
He does the final stunt over the pile of bodies that have broken the bones.
Yeah.
Unnamed stuntmen to prove that it was safe before he could do it.
Yeah.
Classic Rumble in the Bronx jump, where you see it's Stanley Tong doing it, and then Jackie stands up in the outtakes as if he did the jump himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, a topic to get to later, I feel, of just can we do an episode on wild behind the scenes stories and the movies that came out of it?
Oh yeah.
Are there any
I like that idea?
What are movies that are the behind the scenes stories are more famous than the movies themselves? Maybe the Dennis Hopper film that he made after Easy Rider.
Oh yeah. Well, there is a documentary about that.
Yeah.
The American Dreamer.
Yeah.
I mean, the most famous one that's really famous is Twilight Zone, but I don't think
I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I know you have a copy of what is it called?
Outrageous Conduct.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what's another interesting documentary if you're insane like we are is there's this one from 2002 called Antenna Criminal, making a Jess Franco movie. Have you ever seen this?
Yes, this is the one where it was basically a bunch of fans brought him down. I think we talked about it on our Jess Franco episode.
Because he was doing a convention there
Yeah.
at the time. He was like in Florida or something. And he was also filming a really, really shit action movie called Blind Target.
That's it. And because this is a documentary that's famous for, like, there's a scene where they catch Lena Romay, like, just being like...
Putting her hand on
Yeah,
him
it's like, it's okay. Basically, like, we'll get through this.
That's really sweet. That's the scene I remember from that.
So, yeah, any Jess Franco behind-the-scenes documentary? Yes, please. So thank you very much for your letter, Felix. And just, man, I never thought I would get a letter from someone that was on the set of a Chu Yang-ping film.
If there are any other listeners who have been on a Chu Yang-ping film...
If you want to give us a call, he's still alive, I assume.
Yeah, can he speak English? Probably not.
Probably not. I mean,
we would get an interpreter for that.
What was the last interview? I mean, there's that famous interview where he's on a couch. And it's like 5 minutes long.
Oh, well,
that
famous interview.
Yeah,
there's an interview
famous for us.
There's an interview with Chu Yang-ping that's on some like DVDs of some of his movies.
But if you look at Chu Yang-ping, that's the interview you'll find. I think it's like one of the only video footage. I mean, didn't Dylan Chung say he published his autobiography?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think it's Dylan's responsibility to translate it.
Dylan's listening to this and he's like, yeah, if you pay me, I'll do it.
Yeah. I love having some Chu Yang-ping talk on the pod. This is why we'll never quite hit blank check numbers. It's because we'll spend 15 minutes talking about Chu Yang-ping.
Well, next week we're doing Steven Spielberg again.
Yeah.
Listen, we got to get those numbers up. Actually, what are we doing next week, Will?
Next week, well, first of all, on our Patreon.
Yes.
On our Patreon, we're doing stuff we watched this month. And we will be having a little bit more old radio talk.
Oh, Will went on a trip.
Yeah.
Are you saving that for the Patreon episode? Yeah, you want to sell it to people.
Well, let's just say I went on a trip and I saw some Jack Benny movies.
Oh, you may have seen some famous gravestones as well.
I did.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well, we'll talk about it.
All right. And so that's our Patreon. Next week, we're doing a subject that you've heard of.
Yes.
But not in this way.
Oh, we're going to roast them.
And this is part of our ongoing sort of occasional series of directors and topics that we've already done on the podcast once before, but we did them long ago and we maybe have new thoughts. We'd like to try them again.
I want to dig them up just to bury them.
Ingmar Bergman, very early episode.
Yeah.
Great filmmaker. I think that's fair to say.
I think that's fair to say.
Ingmar
yes.
Bergman. But what if we did the bad Ingmar Bergman? Uh-oh.
And no one can see me doing a Kevin McAllister face.
That's right. We're going to be talking about The Touch, his English language film with Elliot Gould. We're going to be talking about his failed comedy, All These Women.
Now, you said it like his comedy. He had done comedies before that.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about his failed comedy. And we're going to pick a third one. I'm not sure what it's going to be because we already talked about The Serpent's Egg.
Yeah, we're not going to touch that one again. I liked it. I remember.
You know, it's a failure, but it's got interesting stuff in it. We might talk about, like, I don't know, I feel like Face to Face is kind of a lesser regard.
Right, because that was like a late period, like playing the hits kind of considered movie at the time.
Maybe something like that. But anyway, we'll see. The bad Ingmar Bergman.
I'm pulling off my Bergman collection, blowing the dust off of it.
The big old Criterion set? Yeah,
Yep,
I'm going to do that too.
Have you spun one disc from that set?
Yes, I have. I watched The Serpent's Egg on it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm going to watch some more movies.
I don't believe The Touch is on there.
Oh, no, that's not true. I've also watched Cries and Whispers on that.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So. No, the Touch is there.
Is there?
Yeah.
Or is it The Serpent's Egg that's not on there? Because there's one of those films that is.
I'm certain. Well, okay, we'll find out.
We're gonna
watch them.
Go into the treasure and we're gonna check all of this out. I like all of those women. Yeah, Bergman. He had a real good relationship with some women in his life, right?
None of my business.
Well, we're about to find out, and we're about to laugh. That's what we're doing next week. And until then, my name's Justin Decloux.
I'm Will Sloan.
Thanks for listening. Well, if you're a regular listener to this podcast, you may know that we do have a P.O. Box number that you can send stuff if you think we would like it. Zines, movies.
I love zines.
Posters, I guess.
Money. Money.
Yeah.
Money.
I remember I did a podcast with someone else and they said that they had a P.O. box where like someone sent them like leather crew jackets from a Jim Belushi movie. And I was like, oh, I'm so jealous.
Oh, which movie was it? Was it Taking Care of Business?
I wish. Yeah. So we did receive some stuff and I just want to highlight some of the people that sent things in. For example, we got a fanzine called Cine Club. which is written by Joe. And thank you very much, Joe. You sent us 2 as well. You don't need to do that. You know, if you send 1, it's going to go to me because it's my P.O. box. But
if you send 2, the other one goes to me.
And this is, when we're talking about what we want in a zine, I think this is what it is, right? Which is like,
it's so good.
You look at the cover, it's got color cardstock, and the contents is Red Army Faction on film, Claude Chabrol's The Third Lover, punks on screen. Yes, please. This is all the stuff that I want.
And what's notable about this Cineclub magazine is, we love zines. We love all movie zines. We love movie zines about like science fiction and horror films and exploitation films. There are a lot of those, though.
Yes.
There are a lot of zines with like articles about John Carpenter movies.
I don't need a zine about 80s horror movies. I'm good.
I mean, they're lovely. Don't get me wrong. If you make that zine, that's great. I'd love to see that too. But it's also great when you get a zine that's about stuff that isn't normally in zines.
That's what I want. That's what zines are for. Teach me about things that I otherwise never would have heard about. That the format of it is conductive to me discovering things, because websites barely exist anymore. So you can't discover things like that unless someone posts about it on Twitter.
What if we made a Chu Yen Ping zine? We can do it along the lines of my Three Stooges zine, and we could solicit
articles.
Everyone will just want to write about Fantasy Mission Force.
Yeah, the problem is when we did our Chu Yen Ping episode, we ran head on very quickly into like, boy, most of these movies are bad.
That's true.
Yep. I would also like to highlight Michael, who sent us a very nice letter. And as he points out, he is probably our most northern listener because he's sending it from Inuvik, Nunavut.
How about that? Nunavut.
I don't think I've ever received mail from Nunavut before. Have you?
No.
So thank you very much, Michael, for these great things that we get in the mail. If you want to send us stuff to our P.O. box, you can do it underneath. And it doesn't have to be stuff that you made. It could be like some weird thing you found somewhere in a store that you think we would like.
Yeah, some dead bugs, some old grass.
Nope, don't send any of that stuff. Someone sent me, did I mention it? That he sent for Archie a like knit Godzilla that his girlfriend made.
I mean, that's amazing. That's so sweet that somebody would send a gift for your child.
That's right. Unborn child at that point, I think.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, everybody. And speaking of Godzilla, you just mentioned that you watched a Godzilla movie.
Oh, that's right. I got the new Criterion 4K release of Godzilla vs. Biollante.
How dare you? You're encouraging them to release these as single releases for $50 each.
That's fine. Nom 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 nom. I'll have whatever they put out.
I'm sorry. I'm an OG, so I have the original Blu-ray that was put out. That now, I mean, not anymore, but it used to go for $100. I bought it for $17 at Sunrise Records on Yonge Street back when it used to be there.
For years, I regretted not buying that. Not anymore.
I was there day one. I raced into the Sunrise and be like, "Where is it? Where is it?"
Yeah.
And I got it. No special features, no nothing.
I remember Sunrise Records.
Yeah.
I had a nice Criterion Collection weekend, actually. I did a double feature of that and A Woman of Paris by Charlie Chaplin, which they put out.
Now, where do you stand on Godzilla vs. Biollante?
That's probably, my 15th favorite of the series?
Yeah, this is one that I always hear people kind of talk up where they're like, it's so much fun, but it's full of that stuff of when Godzilla came back post Godzilla Dr. Pepper, that there were rules where like Godzilla couldn't really interact with the monster that much. Isn't it Godzilla though versus Biollante the one with the Terminator's in it too? Is there like a cyborg man, or am I confusing that with another one?
There's no cyborg man, but it has a kind of like American blockbuster feel to it, you know?
I just remember it takes a long time before Biollante shows
Godzilla
up.
versus King Ghidorah is the one with the cyborg man.
Yeah, that's right. That
one rocks.
Yeah, that one's super. He goes back in time.
Yeah.
You learn that Godzilla was a dinosaur.
But yeah, Godzilla versus Biollante was the second of the Heisei series.
Yes.
So Godzilla 1985 came out, and then in 1989 there was this movie. And it's a direct sequel to Godzilla 85, although it doesn't
I think they're all direct sequels.
Yeah, it doesn't have any of the same characters.
No.
I would say my problem with this one is that, like, it's going for a more kind of grown-up tone than a lot of them.
Yeah.
A more kind of American blockbuster feel. I would say that for about 30 or 40 minutes in the middle, it gets a little boring.
A Godzilla movie in the middle getting boring.
I know that they're all kind of boring in the middle.
But it's a different flavors of
boring,
right?
like there are textures of boredom I like more than others. And also, so the Godzilla scenes in this movie and in all of the Heisei era ones, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with.
Because he doesn't fight. He sits back and shoots energy beams.
That's all they do.
Yeah.
They shoot energy beams at each other. What I will say is, visually, beautiful film.
Biolante, great monster.
Oh yeah.
The problem with Biolante, can't do much because of the kind of monster who is basically a giant Audrey 2.
But the cityscapes, you know,
the miniatures,
like beautiful, and like the rubbery Godzilla costumes. I will say the Godzilla in this movie has less personality than some because you know he's got a big mechanical face that kind of opens and shuts in a very mechanical way. But I do love the rubbery texture of it.
Now, have you seen? Is it on the Blu-ray? The stop motion footage they shot for it, but didn't end up including in the movie.
Oh, so I haven't explored the extras.
If you go on YouTube, search Godzilla vs. Biolante stop motion, basically the director did tests where he wanted like Godzilla and Biolante to like duke it out, and they were stop motion in the footage, and they decided at the last minute, it doesn't really fit, so they didn't use it. Yeah. I feel like Biolante picks Godzilla up and like throws him.
But yeah, about the Criterion Collection, it is funny. Like a couple of years ago or 5 years ago, when they put out that huge, massive box set of the first 15 years of Godzilla movies.
In transfers that have never looked worse.
Yeah. You know,
thanks, Toho.
You could see that what Criterion was doing with that was like, okay, you know, Godzilla movies, they're for kids. They're a little silly, so we'll do a big box of all of them.
Yeah.
And then they'll be worthy of the Criterion brand. And then at some point in the last 5 years, they realized
these suckers will pay $50 for one of them.
They remembered that this is a business, and that this makes a lot of money. So now they're going to put out the 15th best Godzilla movie in an immaculate transfer. It does look great.
Does it?
You know, yeah,
okay.
It looks spectacular.
I feel like my Blu-ray looked okay. I still have it on my shelf.
I'm not going to encourage you to buy it because, like, look, you have enough stuff.
Yeah.
And
who, me?
And
No, I'm not gonna buy it. No.
And also, like, you've seen Godzilla versus Biolante.
It's fine.
How often are you gonna watch it?
Not that often.
But I bought it because I'm also not gonna watch it that much. And
you didn't own it.
And I didn't own it.
That's
yes,
right. That's
right.
a big difference. Right. So what is the ones that you want to see?
Oh, Megalon. Godzilla versus Megalon.
But they're not gonna do it. They already did it. It was on the on the 15-year box set.
I want to see a better version.
I don't think it's good. You know what? I think it could happen. Because the Toho who licensed Godzilla when they did that big box set is not the same Toho now. Same Toho now is like, what, you want Godzilla enemas? Sure, why not?
Actually, I want a huge box set of the complete Godzilla 1985. That's kind of like the complete Mr. Arkadin.
I would love that.
You got all the different cuts.
Who's the person who was behind the scenes who did it? It was the director. I think it was Tony Randall who shot those new scenes. The director of Hellraiser 2.
That's right. That's right. He shot the Raymond Burr scenes. And actually, I would like a box set like that for Godzilla versus Megalon because there's the Japanese version, there's the American cut, which is not that different. But there's also the version that they played on NBC that was hosted by John Belushi.
Yeah.
John Belushi wearing a Godzilla costume. And I don't think that's been seen since like 1978. So
if they can do these, suckers like me and you will be buying these $90 box sets up with grins on our faces. Wait. Now, tariff time. What if Blu-rays start getting more expensive?
Well, you know, I have been meaning to economize anyway. So I've been meaning to
maybe look at what you have and go, what have I not watched? 85% of this?
It's time to start paying off that credit card debt. You know what I mean?
But if they announce Mr. Arcade and Godzilla 1985, 84.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I'm cutting down on spending money on things I don't want.
So Megalon, Godzilla. What about a King Kong versus Godzilla?
Well, I mean, I love that movie.
Yeah, so you're going to get it, no problem.
Yeah, but I'll prioritize that over certain other things.
But, okay, I'm trying to think of a Godzilla film that made you go, like, I don't know about this. I guess there isn't really one, right? Like
they're all good. Well, the Matthew Broderick one.
Yeah, but forget that. I'm not buying any special edition of that.
You know, the thing about, like, Godzilla -1 or Shin Godzilla, both of which are two of the best Godzilla movies. Yeah. I don't feel I need to own them because they're not Megalon.
Oh, well, I have news for you. Not only do I own them, I own two gigantic special editions, both of them. One of them from France, the other one from the UK, and they all have subtitles I can read. So I'm good. So I can consume all that stuff. No, and those are ones that I feel like I'll be spinning more often than I would. What Godzilla film am I not going to watch?
Godzilla versus the Sea Monster.
Oh,
that one's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, that's the Godzilla on the island.
I know which one you won't spin very often. Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster.
Did I say I don't like that one? Yeah, I think I was. You know which one I won't spin very often? I know Sacrilege. Destroy All Monsters.
Destroy All Monsters is a little overrated, you know?
Yep. We talked about it on a Godzilla episode.
A lot of it's pretty dull.
But yeah, any Godzilla big box set, except maybe it's funny that Biolante was the one I was like, I don't need that because I already have it. Yeah. But if they came around, they're like King Ghidorah, 4K. Give me tons of special features. I'll be there with a big smile on my face. But like, if you give me the bare minimum and still charge me $50, no, thank you.